Morning everyone and welcome back to the vlog. Now today in this episode I'm going to be putting head to head two cameras which are real beasts in the camera world. We've got the D850, which when it came out a few years ago really took DSLR cameras to the next level, and it really still is thought of as one of the best cameras that was ever developed. And I'm comparing it to Fuji's GFX 102 medium format camera that a lot of people have switched over to over the last year or two, and I'm really looking forward to getting them out into the field and comparing both those cameras. I'm at Acharn Falls. We've got a beautiful waterfall up the top of the hill, and I'm really looking forward to trying out both those cameras and comparing the feel and the image quality when I get back. I could have probably chosen a better location for bringing two lots of camera gear. This hill's a killer. So let's start with the basics. The Nikon D850 is a full frame DSLR, whereas the Fuji GFX 102 is a mirrorless medium format camera. But what's the real difference? Well, full frame cameras use a 36 by 24mm sensor, the standard for many pro photographers. They offer excellent image quality, good dynamic range, and perform well in low light. They're also lighter, faster, and easier to carry. Now, medium format sensors are larger, usually 44 by 33mm or more, and that extra size means more resolution, richer tones, and beautiful detail in skies, textures, and shadows, perfect for huge prints and fine art landscapes. So let's talk ergonomics and handling. The D850 is a real nice compact camera. The buttons are in a really nice position. You kind of use what I would refer to as Nikon muscle memory, and just being able to work your way around the camera. The grip is nice and deep, and it's well built. I've always felt with this camera that you could drop it off a cliff, it would just bounce back up, land in your hand, and you just carry on photographing. Now the GFX 100 still has that real ergonomic feel to it. Its magnesium alloy body really give it that solid feel. Yes, it's definitely chunkier than the actual D850, but without the lenses, they're very comparable in weight, and it's a nice camera to hold in the hand. Now, as I mentioned before, the weight of these cameras is very similar. The D850 is just over a kilogram, and the GFX is only 25 grams heavier. But once you start throwing on those Fuji lenses, it really does start to change the weight difference. This camera certainly starts to get quite heavy. Now, the D850 has got a 153-point phase detect AF focus system, which for a camera of its age is pretty good. And out in the field, I've never had any problems. But it doesn't have the new AI subject detect, which so many modern cameras now have. Now, Fuji really cranked things up with the GFX. Not only does it use phase detect AF system, but it also uses AI subject tracking. which is quite incredible really for a medium format camera. I wouldn't say it's fast, but having that additional eye detection, subject detection, really does open things up to more photographers. Now let's talk image quality. The D850 has that 45.7 megapixel, a great dynamic range, still comparable to a lot of modern cameras today. And Nikon color really does just make scenes really come to life. I've always enjoyed using this camera and never been disappointed with the image quality. Now this is really where we spice things up, because the FUJI GFX 100 has that 100 megapixel sensor, and it does not disappoint. We were out using the camera over on the West Coast, if you caught our last couple of episodes, and I was staggered by the amount of detail that I could bring back from shadow and highlight areas. One image in particular I took of a waterfall, and there was no detail in the falls at all, and I was able to bring it all back. You know, a lot of the talk at the moment is about, do you need a 100 megapixel sensor? Why would you need to blow up your images that big? But when you start looking at the detail and those sort of the dynamic range, those shadows and highlights, having that flexibility, it's a game changer. Now let me start by saying that there is no real benefit to showing you two images side by side taken on both different cameras, and that's because YouTube applies compression that strips away the subtle tones, fine textures and the shadow detail, and as a result both images would appear pretty much identical on screen, but when viewed in full resolution the differences are really clear. Now, both of these images were shot in RAW format at ISO 100 with no editing applied, and they were slightly underexposed intentionally to preserve the highlight detail in that waterfall coming down at the back. Now this image, taken with the Nikon D850, you can see that when we raise the exposure to bring out more detail in the shadow areas, the limitations of the sensor really become obvious. Noise begins to creep in, and instead of recovering sort of clean texture, we see grain, color noise, and a general loss of detail. Now, here's image 2 taken on the Fujifilm GFX 100 with the same exposure adjustment. The shadows stay impressively clean. There's far more detail, minimal noise, and a real smooth tonal transition. Textures in the darker areas are preserved, giving it a much more usable image. So let's talk that all-important battery life, which when you're out in the middle of nowhere for the day, that's really important. Well, the D850 takes on around about 1,840 shots per fully charged battery, where the GFX 100 takes around about 500, and less than that if you're using the EVF fairly heavily. So there is a big trade-off. You've got that stunning image quality, but you don't get that battery life. And in this instance, the D850 really does win, hands down. So let's talk price. Now the D850 you can currently get body only for around about $2,800 at the moment, whereas the GFX 100 is an incredible $7,500, just the body. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I could get a D850 and 2 Pro lenses for the price of just the Fuji body alone. Now let's talk lenses. Nikon's range of f-mount lenses really is legendary. The variety of lenses that are available are just incredible. And you've got third-party lenses as well. It's pretty hard to beat. Now there are definitely fewer choices for the Fuji GF lens range. Those lenses are incredibly sharp and are really well designed for the medium format camera. And they really are incredible lenses to use, but there isn't that variety. So as far as availability, the Nikon wins hands down. But for sharpness and quality of build, the GF lenses are in their own league, really. So I'd be really interested to know which you'd go for if you had the budget. Would you go for that high image quality of the Fuji GFX 100, or would you go for that rugged versatility of the D850? Let me know. Now, I haven't gone into all the detail, but there's probably a couple of things that I should also mention. Firstly, is those file sizes of the Fuji. They're incredible. You need a lot of storage when you're working with those files, and a very good computer that can process the images. Mine certainly lagged when I was processing some of those files. And the other thing is you've got to remember with the lenses, that because you're shooting on medium format, you're not getting those focal ranges. The 100 to 200 millimeter lens is about the equivalent of 80 to 158 millimeters on a full frame camera. So you are losing some of that range with your lenses. Just something to keep in mind. Composite images on the back of the Fuji, it's a real pleasure. It seemed to be that little bit sharper and that little bit more contrast. And there shouldn't really be that much difference because they're the same size screen and pretty much the same resolution. Obviously the advantage you've got with the Fuji is you've got the electric viewfinder, which when you're working in sort of dark contrasty conditions, that can be really handy. Personally, myself, 99% of the time, I shoot using the rear screen. So what's my verdict? Well, if you're looking for a camera that's really versatile, good value for money, quality build, a good range of lenses, and a long battery life, you can't go wrong with the Nikon D850. It is still a stunning camera to use, and the images are just beautiful. But if you're really looking for that incredible image quality, if you're out putting prints and fine artwork, then the Fuji camera is really a stunning camera that you just cannot go wrong when it comes down to detail and quality. And as I said, bringing back those highlights and shadows, for me, I love the Fuji. I think that image quality is next level. You may have seen in previous videos, I have compared the D850 with the Z8 And I really just couldn't, it was a lovely camera, but I just could not notice a difference in image quality. But Fuji GFX 100 II takes it to the next level. It's a stunning camera. So that's it for this episode of the vlog. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I hope you've enjoyed seeing the comparison between those two cameras. And as I said, if you had the budget, let me know which camera you'd go with. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the like button. If you missed our previous episodes of a road trip over to the West Coast, I'll leave a link in the description below. Look forward to seeing you in the next episode.